So let's take a look at how to use our brand new Visionary FT product. This is facial tracking that is a downloadable, licensable product through Dashboard. So take a look at the user guide that you can download on our website to see how to set it up. But it's generally the same as most all other ROS products. You start with the plus sign, and then you go through select your equipment, and then you add the IP address of the computer that's running your Visionary engine. Over here on the left side, you'll see that there is a Visionary drop-down menu. So you just go ahead and open that up and click on Control. And once it opens, the first thing you're going to see is it's going to be in standby mode. And standby mode is basically saying that it's off. It's not functioning. Nothing's looking to track, and no cameras are being actively fed through your engine. And then once you move it to an active camera, then you'll be able to see the output of that camera if you have all of your gear set up properly. So in this case, I have a Furio and I have a CamBot going through my system. All of your cameras can be listed up on top. You can have as many cameras as you want to be connected to your Visionary FT system. However, depending on how many engines you have, you can only run so many simultaneously. So right now, you can see on the side here, I can look at my configuration page to see how many channels I'm running, open up channels, and I only have one channel. So because I only have one channel, I'm only able to actually track one camera at a time. So I have to choose between what I have up here, whether it's going to be Furio or CamBot. So in this particular case, the blue outline means that I am tracking my Furio. If I switch it over to CamBot, then I'm looking to track my CamBot. So this just assigns this particular robot to the channel that you're working from. So right now I'm working from one channel again. So I'm going to work with my Furio. That's where you start at the top. Once you get over to the right-hand side, you have a couple of different options for how to set up your controls. Some basic options, and then there's the advanced motion options. To start with the basic options, you have your X, your Y, your W, and your H. All of these options refer to this frame right here in the center that I'm moving around with my mouse. So you can either decide to drag and drop it with your mouse, or you can adjust it using these toggles here on the side. I find it a bit easier to use the mouse, but if you like the toggles, it's totally okay. The positioning of the box in your frame, so wherever I decide to land that box, that's going to be how your pan and your tilt adjust. It's going to be how they track. And then the size of that box is going to be how your zoom adjusts, because essentially what we're looking for with this box is to fill it with a face. So if it's bigger, you're going to be zooming in a bit more. If it's smaller, you're not going to be zoomed in as far. You're going to be zoomed out a bit more. Now at the bottom of the right-hand side controls, you see deadband and damping. Deadband, so once I have this box placed in my frame, deadband decides your safe area. And what I mean by safe area is when you have talent on screen or within the frame of your image, sometimes they're going to move. They're going to move when they talk. They're going to move their hands. They're going to adjust themselves. They're going to lean to one side or the other. They're going to lean forward. And you don't always want the camera to be moving to follow them. So what deadband is going to do, deadband's actually going to help you tell the software, what is that safe zone? How far can they move before you want the system to adjust? And then damping below that is that particular adjustment is how quickly you want it to adjust once that talent hits the safe zone that you've set in the deadband settings. So what I'm going to do is actually show you exactly how that works. I have a live model here, and I'm going to show how deadband is adjusted while she's moving. So Karen, if you don't mind stepping up next to the male mannequin. Okay, so right now Karen is being tracked as number 3, so you can see her box is number 3. I have it in manual mode. I'm going to hit number 3, and then I'm going to say I want her face to be about this big in the frame. Now, once I turn auto tracking on, it's going to track to her face and adjust where the camera is. But first I want to adjust my deadband. So right now I'm going to leave damping really, really low and deadband really, really low. And then I'm going to turn tracking on. So now you'll notice if Karen moves out of the frame, if she takes a step, it's going to follow her very, very closely because my deadband is very low, meaning she has a very small safe zone. So the camera is always going to try to move to follow her. Where if I turn the deadband up, and let me just make it more exaggerated to 100 here, if she moves now, she has a little bit bigger of a safe zone before it tries to follow her. And then if I adjust my dampening level as well, it's also going to be a little bit of a softer follow. So now if you take a step to your left or right, it's going to be, you're going to have a little bit more room to move, and it's going to be a little bit more of a softer follow as far as the pan and tilt and when it comes after you. So depending on how you want to use the system in your studio, you might want deadband and dampening to be the same across your pan and your tilt and your zoom axes. But if you want to adjust those, you can also go into advanced motion and you can make it so that the pan, the tilt, and the zoom react differently to your deadband and your damping settings. So that is completely something up to you that you can set up on a per tracking basis. So down below, you'll notice that I set that up with Karen, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to turn tracking off now, and I'm going to zoom that robot back out. So in order to do that, well, first I'm going to make this full screen so we can see it all the way across, and then I'm going to go into my Smart Shell application, which is just behind this, and I'm going to zoom back out. I'm going to send my Furio back to that original position. Okay, so now I'm back to that original position. What I'm seeing here on my Furio is that there are 2 subjects' faces that are available to be tracked. If Karen joined me in this frame, you'll see her face as well. Yep, so now it's picking up Karen's face as well, and she's being picked up as number 4. So across the top, again, selected subject 1 through 4. When I have it in manual mode, I can pick the subject that I want the camera to track. So in this case, if I pick Karen and I turn it on, it's going to track Karen using the parameters that I've set up with deadband and dampening and into this box. So because I have such a large safe zone, the box is giving her a little bit of space. But if I adjust that, it's going to bring it in a little bit more. And that's how you would use manual mode. Manual mode allows you to do this on a per person basis. And then the difference between manual and auto is that if I turn tracking off now, turn it into auto mode's actually going to take whatever is the closest to your box here. So your framing target, I'm going to take it back out to that image that I was showing you earlier. So I'm just going to go back to my Smart Shell machine, take it back to that original spot. All right, so now I have this very large box right here in the center. And if I place it over here, it's going to take, notice how this blue box changes based on where my framing target is. It actually, the way auto mode works is that it's going to take whoever's closest to your framing target, and that's who it's going to track. So if you leave it in auto mode as you're working, as you're doing your broadcast, it might change who's being targeted depending on where they're at in the frame. So in this case, I'm going to make this a little bit smaller so it doesn't get zoomed in too far. If I turn this on now, it's going to jump into Karen, or it's going to jump into my male mannequin here. But if I get a little closer to the male mannequin and click on, it's going to jump into him. Where if I were to adjust that, And I didn't want it to be a centered shot. I wanted it to be maybe an over the shoulder shot, which would make it a little bit closer here. See, I'm still tracking. So it's still going to keep with that same person. But if I turn tracking off, then I have the opportunity to adjust who is going to be working with that. Now in auto mode, that's not necessarily the way it's meant to be used. It's meant to just be functioning in the background for you and grabbing whoever's closest to the center so that it can automatically adjust for that. And that's how that's meant to be used. But if you were using it during a show, it would just grab whoever's closest to that framing target. All right, so there's one more mode that you can set up, and what I'm going to show, that is the tracking mode in one shot. And what one shot is meant to do is work semi like an autofocus. It's a very quick correction. So right now I'm selected on camera 1 and I have and I'm going to go to one shot. It's going to quickly correct to center that face. Now the idea is that you would do this very quickly before you go to break or when you're coming out of break, just to make sure all of your cameras are centered or on the next shot that you wish them to be on. If I go and I send my robot back to the wide shot, now I see all three faces. If I selected number 4, which is Karen, and then I wanted her to be centered on this, I just click one shot, and it's meant to be a very quick change, very quick update for your camera system. Okay, so that is how Visionary works inside of Dashboard. It also works with your Smart Shell system as far as presets are concerned. So if I go back to Smart Shell and just run some presets consecutively, just run a move, key up that move, and then click run and go back to Visionary. You'll see that this is started. I'm going to turn my tracking on, and it's going to actually adjust the pan, tilt, and zoom axes of that move while it's happening. Now you see it starting to adjust there. So as Karen, if Karen could move around just a little bit, if you take a couple of steps, so if she moves out of her frame, then it's actually going to try to keep up with her, even though you're in an already set up move or preset. So it does work in conjunction with your Smart Shells presets in version 1. So now it's just following Karen around. Another way that you can set up your preset in Dashboard, if you want to stay in Dashboard and you don't want to go in and out of Smart Shell, you can actually set it up to share a screen here with your robotics. So all of Ross Robotics, all presets can be triggered in Dashboard. So you would just pull up your robotics machine, and then on the side here you can share some space and set that up. So here I'm just going to send it to, makes it a bit easier so you don't have to go in between the two programs if you don't want to. Except you just don't have as much control here in Dashboard. So I'm still tracking Karen. Okay, so that's a quick demo of how our Visionary FT version 1 software works. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us here at Ross Video. Thank you very much.